My name is Oscar Molina, and I'm the Reservoir Automation Director, Senior Reservoir Engineer here at Enovate Upstream, and today I will be presenting on behalf of the Reservoir Engineering team, which is myself, Yang, and others. So thank you so much for taking the time to attend our webinar. It's going to be about production performance driver. It's all about how to identify those, how they affect your production from unconventional reservoirs. So the goal of this webinar is to deconstruct production data. I'm going to take an example from a well in an unconventional basin here in the U.S. in South Texas, in order to determine what are the driving factors, what are those parameters driving production. It's going to be an oil well, so what are those parameters driving oil production in this asset? Secondly, how can we accurately estimate the ultimate recovery? So how can we tell how much is this well going to produce? And as you're going to see as this presentation goes along, it's not quite an easy feat to do. And then how do we manage uncertainty? So there is a certain component into this analysis, which is uncertainties. And towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then how can we handle that? What are the Enovate Upstream tools we have available for you to handle uncertainties? And how can we take this type of analysis into the real-time realm? So I hope that you all enjoyed the presentation. As Rebecca mentioned, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat room. So we will addressing them towards the end of or at the end of the presentation. So to begin with, let us step back for a moment and look at this plot over here. So this is production data. This is actually production data from a well in South Texas. This is from the Eagle Ford. So a little bit of a background of this well. All we know at this point is, well, this is a multi-fractured horizontal well in the lower Eagle Ford shale, and that's it. So then, first time you look at this plot is like, the first thing that comes to mind, at least to me, is, well, what is this plot telling me? What is this production trend telling me? What is the oil production about the gas production? What about the two combined in the same plot? What are they telling me? One of the things that I could see right at first sight would be that these production trends are more or less proportional. So if this is an oil system, perhaps I would bet with saying this is a black oil system. That's much about what I can say just by looking at this plot without any further information. So some other questions could come to mind, like, for instance, what can we tell about the reservoir? How about the well? Is this a good performing well? Is this a bad performer? How can we tell? And more importantly, what is the technical recovery from this well? I mean, how much am I expecting to produce from this well? It's been producing for 4.5 years, so it will be probably online for another couple, 3, 4 years. It all depends on at this point, it all depends on reservoir economics. So we will discuss about it later in this presentation. So the outlook for this presentation, how this is going to go is, I'm going to give you a very brief, high-level introduction to unconventional reservoirs. This introduction is more focused on the fact that unconventional have this particularity of differentiating from conventional reservoirs from very specific points, and I'm going to discuss them one by one. And then we're going to talk a little bit about multi-fracture horizontal wells. How are they constructed? What is the whole deal about multi-stage fracturing and that related. And now, then I'm gonna switch the focus a little bit towards decline curve analysis, which is, I would dare to say, is the standard way we reservoir engineers estimate productivity from wells when we don't know much data about them. When we don't have micro cracks that happen around the main hydraulic fractures are unpropped, so they are more prone to close faster as we withdraw pressure from the reservoir. So geomechanics might or might not play a role. That this is the case, but in particular, this is the case for high lower pressure formations like the Haynesville in northern Louisiana and Texas, as well as Vaca Muerta Shale in Argentina. Those are two good examples of geomechanics having a large influence on well performance. So I was discussing earlier about, okay, so multi-fracture wells, how do they look like in reality? We know that in conventional wells, we have vertical wells, we have horizontal wells also, we have slanted wells, but not as complex as these ones. So basically here on this figure, I'm showing what is known as a microseismic mapping. Is basically the installation of geophones in wells that are nearby the horizontal well that we are fracking. And then all of the seismic activity occurring during the fracturing treatment is being recorded by these geophones over here. Then you map where and how big were these seismic events and where they were located during the fracturing of a particular stage. Here, or typically you will find that microseismic maps, they will color the seismic clouds by stage. So basically each of the colors will represent the stage. More or less, but by using this information, we have computational software available for us to come up with some sort of fracture modeling, fracture geometry that we can somehow handle in regards to modeling reservoirs for production data analysis purposes, for reservoir characterization purposes, and so forth. So, but what are the real challenges of forecasting production from this type of wells, from this type of reservoirs? What is the real deal about assessing how much can I produce from such a complex systems? So as I just say, multi-fracture horizontal wells are in nature very high complex systems. So we have interactions with the wellbore, with the region that was stimulated by the hydraulic fractures, and we have unstimulated region left behind in between stages outside of the area of drainage area of these wells. We have planar, non-planar fractures. We have simulated and non-simulated rock, as I just mentioned, and the heterogeneities along the lateral section are evident. And in fact, let me show you an example of the heterogeneity in the instantaneous shooting pressure. This is for another horizontal well. So you can see here that the fact that the instantaneous shooting pressure changes this way along the lateral, it's telling you that rock properties are somehow changing as well. So it's like you are dealing with 19 vertical wells with one fracture. It is very difficult in principle to put them all together into a single model for analysis. That complicates things even further. So how can we model multi-fracture horizontal wells in a practical way without losing any accuracy undergoing boundary dominated flow? I don't want to get too technical about this, but just the takeaway here is that conventional wells, this approach might work for conventional wells, and it does a very, very good job. So essentially, this is the question that ARGS came up with, in which D and B, DI, B are free parameters. It's basically that you have two parameters you can play with in order to fit your observations, and this will make more sense in a minute. So about this parameter B, I bet you have heard about it a lot in the industry, like the B factor. The B factor, what is the B factor? If it's 0.5, what if it's an exponential decline? The mathematical proof of it is beyond of the scope of this presentation, but trust me, when this V tends to 0, this becomes the exponential function. So when B equals 1, so this is just harmonic decline, and when B is different than this 2 and greater than and positive is the hyperbolic decline that we heard a lot about. But this is not the only model. This was just the start of an entire family of mathematical expressions that will allow you to curve fit your data. It's nothing but that. Then ARPS was the precursor of all of those models. We have the modified hyperbolic decline, the power law, stretch, and so on. But notice that in every of these models, in every single of these models, you only have sort of like curve fitting parameters with conditionals, with some restrictions for time-wise, some power loads over here, but really you are not inputting any information about your reservoir. So when you do this type of analysis, you must be aware that unless you have a mathematical rigorous I will say, at least analytical solution to your problem, this will be more an exercise of curve fitting your data and seeing what you get out of it. And for me to make sense out of it and that you bring you on the same page, so this is the exact same information I showed you at the beginning. This is the exact same well. And over here we have the cumulative production curve that I showed you. This is in 1,000 barrels. And over here is the average production rates for this well. So if I were to apply exponential decline, that's what I'm going to use for this example, it will go something like this, right? And this is the equation that I get by curve fitting this data. So the maximum initial rate will be 1,000 barrels a day, and it will have a decline rate of 0.002 per day, which has an equivalent per year that I'm going to show you in a minute. And if I were to curve fit the cumulative production, which in this case I'm going to be more interested in because I'm trying to look at how much am I going to produce from this well. So I'm trying to look at the intersection with this y-axis, secondary y-axis. So I get this curve. I mean, it's okay. There are some misfit over here, but overall it follows a trend. And here's the equation for that curve fit. Now the results tells me that we have this decline rate, and the EOR from this equation I can see that when at very very large times this will become a very small number. So you will end up with this 500, which is 500,000 barrels. So according to this decline curve analysis, which as you can see is very practical, you get this number. Now, if you were to apply any of the other methods that are there that I showed you in the previous slide, well, they will deliver similar information, right? So you can play with this curve, like say, hey, up to this point, I'm gonna with decline curve, and then from here to here, I'm gonna do something else. Over here, I'm gonna do something else. But it's just mathematical manipulation of your data. You really are missing a lot about your reservoir. There's no such thing as what about this or that? What if? So here, I'm showing what is the full spectrum of this analysis. So I extended the analysis for 7 to 8 years. And then here is like, okay, so this is what my curves look like, which in fact look good to my eyes. So knowing that we're dealing with a multi-fracture horizontal well in an unconventional reservoir, we might feel compelled to ask ourselves the following questions. Questions like, what is the impact of matrix porosity on production performance? Because I simulated the well, I created some fracture complexity through the fracturing process in multiple, and then they encapsulated this region as a region of stimulated permeability, or which has a permeability that is higher than that of the matrix, and within which there is a hydraulic fracture right in the middle. So, we talked earlier about the complexity of having multiple stages with multiple properties, like what I showed you with the instantaneous shooting pressure, remember? So what this model does is, we can assume that instead of having these distinct stages, we have equal stages with average properties, which makes the problem more tractable. Nonetheless, we can still simulate this model on a stage-by-stage basis, and that's exactly what we do on real time. And I'm going to discuss that towards the end of the presentation. But in a sense, the model, when it was first published, it has some limitations to it, which we overcame with implementing the fast nonlinear solver that I developed as part of my PhD research, and it's very fast. You will see in a second. So that we give user the flexibility to use whichever correlation fits their data the best, depending upon, if you have offset data from all wells, well, you can analyze those and then see which correlation would fit your data best. So we offer that flexibility to the user. You can use tables, you can use mathematical correlations to describe your fluid and rock properties. So this is a big advantage of our platform. As I mentioned, the AI component, the artificial intelligence component, accelerates the solution, improves its accuracy, and maintain the stability. So sometimes I run into the case that I was running a numerical simulation, for instance. It will always resolve. so that you forget about the numerical part. We'll take care of it, and you focus on getting the results you want to get. And then there are our built-in geomechanics correlations also available for you to use, or you can use bring your own, or use lookup tables. We'll take care of those as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the analytical simulator, which is based on the fast nonlinear solver, and we also have numerical solvers available, which uses top-notch technology. In this case, we use the Intel math kernel library to really exploit what modern computing power has to offer. So you will always be safe in the sense that you will be utilizing high-tech simulation tools that are run on cloud servers that are very, very powerful. So back to our well. We talk a little bit about decline curve analysis, what we do with flow, what does it do, and now it's time to go back to our well and I'm beginning to see how can we utilize flow to push this study forward. So as I say, flow is a physics-based model tool, which is enhanced with AI, but as such it needs physically meaningful inputs in order to run a simulation. So we need to give the model inputs in order for it to understand what we're telling them, and then simulations will follow. So here I'm showing some static reservoir properties where this well is located, and here's the country where the well is located at. And from thickness maps and contour maps, we get that the thickness is somewhere between these values. Same is true for initial pore pressure. And as we presume in the beginning, if you remember, yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So what I'm going to do here is, this is the web environment of digital production. What we're going to be looking at is flow. It's a very, very simple and intuitive interface that you have right here. And the idea is to utilize it for the purpose of analyzing production data from the well we are studying right now. So flow has inputs for the main properties of the well, like say for example reservoir properties, which are the static properties we were just reviewing. All properties, the same completion design. This is important because this information is to be provided by the completion engineer. Same here, matrix properties. These are the geologic static reservoir properties again, and that will be supplied and confirmed by G&G specialists, as well as other reservoir engineers and petrophysicists. SRB properties, on the other hand, it's more subject to model calibration, because this is something we cannot really measure. The how well the simulation go is something that is up to interpretation, but then there is some ways to reduce that uncertainty as well. Structural properties that is tied to completion design. And simulation setting is just the way we want to run this simulation. So let me go ahead and create a case. This scenario name, I will call it webinar example well 0. So I created this scenario. And once the scenario is created, you will see some default, some inputs that are there by default. It's just to help you keep started. So let me run the simulation as it is right now. And what it does is basically takes its input data, takes it to the server, and then the server just takes back the results from the simulation. Let me look for it again over here, webinar sample well. And the idea is that we can also observe how this is going to behave for this set of properties. As this far, well, we are just running a simulation without any information about the well, right? This is just a simulation that is the result of all of the properties that I have over here. Then I need to see my well. The way we do it is that we come here to this icon, and then we are gonna import our data. So here on this side, I have the data for this well. Is given in flowing time, or how long has this well been flowing from this starting date, and what was the average rate. So if I were to plot this on here on Excel, you'll see that, this is the data that we already is given in flowing time, or how long has this well been flowing from this starting date, and what was the average rate. So if I were to plot this on here on Excel, you'll see that, this is the data that we have already seen before. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this data here. The date report is by flow time, and the production report is by average daily rate production. And notice that you also have the option to upload your information as a monthly report, or as in the form of start and date, if you have it that way. And we also have the option to accommodate for calendar days and operating days, but that's another feature that needs a little bit more of time to explain how it works. So here's the file I have, and then it should be up there. Let me run the simulation again. I would not expect to get a match because I haven't changed the inputs. However, now I can see what my data is showing, right? So even if I haven't drawn the proper model, I can right away look at my data. What is my data telling me? Like the diagnostic plots, for instance. Over here, I'm looking at some unit slow behavior, perhaps, so showing an apparent boundary dominated flow. The specialized plot, the square root material balance time plot, well, showing, well, I can see it very well because of this line over here, but, I can go ahead and fit the model. I will, the idea is to have a way that we can do this automatically as flow can do. So if we specify which properties are there here that are subject to some variation, we can just leave them here, excuse me, and then the software will automatically calculate that for you. For now, I'm gonna go ahead and put all of the inputs that we found that the model matches against. And again, I'd like to encourage you to take a look into the paper to see. Oh, sorry, it didn't update. Let me come here really quickly. I'm having internet connectivity issues, so my apologies for that. I think this is not. Let me see again. My apologies. Is this one? Okay, so here we got the simulation results. Now, as you can see, this match, it's really good. It's really good. And one of the first things you will be able to notice is that the UR is not at 500,000 as we hypothesized using decline curve analysis. It's actually higher than that. But what's more important is the way we got a match. So we can look at different plots. We are not short-sighted to a single plot, but we're looking at the whole picture, at the overall picture. And here you can see, for instance, in the specialized plot, that we got a really good match. We got a really good match as well as with this plot, which is the cumulative versus rate plot, right? So over here, if I was to extend this line, I will get more or less what is going to be the UR for this well. And one interesting thing is here, the diagnostic plot that is showing as this unit slow type of behavior that is indicative of apparent boundary dominated flow. So this tiny deviation towards the end of the curves indicates that you are entering a new transient flow, and this is where the matrix have started to contribute to production. So the matrix potential in this well can be quite high. And in fact, if we were to extend the fractures, should a distance between wells allow, well, we will get more production out of it. So now we're talking about incremental production. But this is the case for the well that we just saw. There is another case that is very interesting. It's a well in the area. It's not the well that we're talking about, but it's another well in which, we also managed to get a match. And as you can see, for our wells also, the model works very well. And here we have this apparent boundary dominated flow behavior with tiny deviation towards a matrix contribution. But what's interesting about this particular plot, this particular scenario, is that we saw that geomechanics actually play a role for this well, in this well. So if we were not to account for geomechanics, we will not be able to get a match. So now back to the presentation. Just hold on a second, please. Back to the presentation. So we have observed that, my apologies, we have observed errors that using fracturing techniques that encourage the fracture branching around the hydraulic fractures. And SRB permeability, on the other hand, it does not affect EOR as we should expect. However, it plays a role in mid to late time production, because, and even early time production, because again, what you see here within the envelope is the production that you would left behind if you will have gotten a low SRB permeability. So all of this, as you saw, performance analysis show that uncertainties can play a significant role when forecasting production from these multi-fracture horizontal wells. So this means that even if I manage to create several realizations that matches my production history, there will be, and it probably be the case that it's not the unique solution for the model. So therefore, we ought to aim at reducing uncertainties in order to get closer and closer to the actual true reservoir model. So fortunately, Enovate Upstream has the ADA AI ecosystem, which is our cloud-based solution that uses artificial intelligence and physics-based modeling for production optimization in real time. And it begins from the very moment that you spot your well and you start drilling. So the way it works is essentially we have several packages on the drilling, for drilling application, for completions applications, and for production applications. And for drilling, we have real-time ROP optimization. And this is important because we not only we look at optimizing drilling, but also we look ahead at these drivers from the production analysis that we say, hey, we got to be looking at high permeability strikes. We gotta be looking at high porosity regions along the lateral. And that can only be told if we run production data analysis using flow for offset wells. So once that information is known, we can apply advanced drilling optimization. We call this Drill Plus. What we do is that we have the capability of predict ahead. So we're predicting ahead how permeability will be changing, how porosity will be changing, that based on artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms